I'm Aiswarya. I'm the founder of Intelligence here. So we're one of the other sponsors, and one of the main things that we kind of focus on as a company is helping large engineering orgs not just maximize quality, but also cost and spend. So as you guys probably know, there's a whole plethora of new models that have been coming out over the last several months. Topping open source charts like BLM, Kimi, DeepSeek, and each of these models have different strengths and essentially are priced very differently. So what we're realizing is in order to maximize performance and quality for your engineering team, it's actually best to be using a mix of all of these models. And then with that, you want to understand what the quality trade-off is. So for example, as a large engineering org, if I'm going to move off of Opus and now start using Kimi or GLM for a majority of our engineering tasks, what exactly is that going to impact, and how can we maintain the highest quality of performance for our coding agents while also optimizing on cost? So that's kind of what we do. Is we're kind of a unified platform to help engineering teams optimize their quality and cost so that you get the best results for your engineering team. So what we're seeing is that as engineering teams grow, they know how much they're spending, right? So you can say pretty easily from your Anthropic bill that we're spending about $1 million or $2 million or something in that ballpark annually. But then if you go and ask these teams to then go and say what percentage of that is going to which different initiative or project, that's kind of when things start to break down, right? And it's unclear exactly what the ROI is from the spend. And that's because a lot of the infrastructure like tracking and analytics essentially hasn't been built out yet, right? So there's no way to say, okay, we spent these number of tokens, it went to this project, and this is the kind of business outcome that we got out of it. And that's essentially what we've built out, so that you understand not just how much you spent, but what actually came out of it, and what is the quality of what was shipped from that product. Yeah, so essentially this is only going up. From the beginning of this year to now, the number of tokens per developer has gone up over 18.6x. And we expect this to only increase as engineers try to, one, automate more things, create loops, background agents, processes, so that all of engineering is essentially streamlined using these coding agents. Yeah, so what I was saying is essentially this is the stats across enterprise, how much they actually are able to measure the spend that they have. Yeah, and you probably all remember this, right? The days of token maxing. So essentially what we're seeing across the entire industry is people weren't using enough AI, then they started using it as much as possible, and now we're trying to actually figure out how to optimize it, right? How to use the right models for the right tasks at the right price and get the ROI that you're actually trying to get for your engineering org. Yeah, so this is amazing. It's like instead of just seeing it as a line item and trying to exploit it as much as possible, figuring out what's the real value on your team's there. Perfect. So yeah, this just kind of goes a little bit more into it. And there's a few things here, right? I think the one by the head of Instagram, Meta, here is really important. Is token budgets will be allocated the way headcount and compute are, right? So if you think about as a VP or a kind of engineering leader, one of the main things you're responsible for is taking the amount of engineers on your team and allocating it to the projects in a way that gets the business outcomes that you're looking for, right? And very soon we'll be starting to do that with engineering tokens as well. And that's one big thing that intelligence actually empowers, is so that you can understand of our $10 million budget, how is it actually driving ROI on what we're looking for. And we did this analysis across over 2,000 companies, and we saw that only about 18 cents of every dollar spent on engineering tokens today is actually being put towards features. So this is a big thing that we help engineering teams optimize, is what percentage is actually going towards bug fixes and just keeping the lights on versus moving the needle for production. So the first thing that we do to actually improve this for your engineering org is we've built a proprietary model router. So what this does is it's trained specifically on engineering tasks. Yeah, so what we're saying is that we train a model router to essentially understand, based on your coding task, which model would be the best fit for the task. And we do this on a turn-by-turn level. So we're able to understand for any given task, at which step you need which model. And by doing this, we're able to actually save you about 50-60% of your costs versus using Cloud Code for not Cloud Code, but let's say Opus 4.8 for every single task. And this is going to be really important because otherwise, if you're using a frontier model for all of your coding needs, essentially the cost versus ROI trade-off is just not entirely there. So yeah, so this is what it's able to do. But we benchmarked against on Terminal Bench. So Terminal Bench is essentially a group of a lot of hard coding tasks. And we look at, for the cost of Opus, what percentage of tasks we're able to solve using our model router. And as you can see, we have two different modes, Balance and Eco. Balance is about 46% of the cost, while being able to solve a full 25, same number of tasks that Opus does. And yeah, so this is a very, I think in the next coming months, any engineering org that is not leveraging a model router, essentially sincerely overpaying for the same quality of code that they can get. And this is it's extremely simple to use. So one of the biggest questions we get all the time is, okay, how is this working in our workflow? Does an engineer have to make any changes? Where exactly does this plug in? It's extremely seamless. So it's essentially just UV install the IntelligenceAI, and it plugs into any different harness that you're using. So whether your team is using Cloud Code, Cursor, Codex, anything else, it will sit in between your harness and the model calls that it's making and make the right decision for which model would be the right fit for them. And then you can turn the router on or off, and at the end of every session, it will give you a snapshot saying how much you saved that session and what models were routed in the process. And yeah, so this is, we also give you these kind of cost charts, tells you what the baseline spend is, how much the router spent, how much you saved, and what percentage was routed. So at every single step, you get to see the cost savings that your team got out of using the router. Now, one of the biggest questions that we get here is not only that, we also give you the attribution per person. And one of the biggest questions is now, okay, we're saving this much money. How is that actually impacting the quality of it, right? So for example, if you do replace your entire Opus spend on Haiku, there will be a difference on kind of quality, right? So one of the main questions here now is, how can we actually measure the quality? So if our entire team does move to Kimi, how do we do that, right? So two main things that we do for you is essentially one, measure on the session level. So as you can see here, it will tell you what is the spend per merge PR, what is the spend per session, what's the cache hit rate, spend on discarded work, tokens per session. All of these are monitored session by session. So you know that if I use this model, how are we affecting or actually using these different metrics? And this allows you to then understand which model serves what benefit for the org. And again, so there's an entire dashboard here that makes it super simple to understand both cost and quality for your sessions as well as the PR output. Yeah, and this I think is actually one of the things that we're most excited about, is you can look on a model by model basis. What is, because we also own the quality layer, so every PR that you put up, we will go in and review it and tell you what are all the critical issues that we find, what are the logic issues, what's the security issues, vulnerabilities. You can see that per model, which of these models are creating what types of issues. And then we use all of this information to then feed it back into the code generation agent, so it's able to prevent these issues from happening. Cool. So yeah, so this overall, and everything we shared so far, helps you, one, reduce your costs, but also measure and track, both on a peer level and on a session level, how that's impacting the quality of the code that's being generated by these models. And yeah, so in one line, same work, about half the spend, and you get the full analytics and insights into which models are being used for what, and how it's actually affecting the number of issues or errors in your system. Now this next part of our platform is really diving into where your spend is going. So now you know, okay, we're spending about 50% less, but what percentage of this is going towards our actual business goals and priorities, right? So one of the things that we see the most of is large engineering orgs trying to just cap spend per engineer. So you say kind of blanket, we have, let's say, $1 million of spend allocated for this year. We will give each engineer $1,000 per month to spend however they want. And then after that, they have to either request more tokens or figure out what you're doing. But the biggest issue with that is you're not actually allocating this against what your business goals are. So if I, as a VP, decide that, hey, there are these 3 main priorities for our org, just like how you allocate headcount, there's maybe 30 engineers on this project, 50 engineers on another project, 20 engineers on the last project. How are you actually going to allocate your $1 million in now token spend across those initiatives? So we allow you to do something like that, where you can actually say per project where you want to allocate, right? Yeah, so this gives you a full breakdown per project. So if I have memory is like RP0 for this quarter, how much money have we allocated towards that and how much are we actually spending? And then you can also see the full breakdown per engineer in terms of what skills they're using, what things they can be doing to be more token efficient, where is token waste currently happening, across compaction, interrupts, repeated edits. And all of these things kind of give you that full picture of where the spend is going today and what can be done to actually optimize it and make it more. This is blurry. Good. Yeah, so this is the other thing. It's like we tell you industry best practices for searches for change, reads for edits, steps for interaction, so that we're actually optimizing the model and the harness performance as we go. Again, more kind of breakdowns into where you're actually spending it. So this, for example, takes all of your PRs and clusters into main feeds, right? So you can see client-side transcript processing, knowledge graph, DB migration, gateway evals, everything that your team is doing, broken down into who was working on it, what's the spend for that, and what's the activity, and how many tokens you're spending. So this essentially completely breaks down we spent all of these tokens, we spent all this money, we don't know where it goes. We've built that entire architecture mapping so that we can tell you specifically all the way down to the engineer, the task, the initiative, where it went and what the ROI is that you got. Cool, so I'll go through some of the rest of this quickly so we can get through a demo. But yeah, so this is the main thing, right? Is once you have this level of visibility, you can now start to treat your AI token spend and your entire understanding of where things are going wrong and the code quality that you're having in a much more granular way. Yeah, so this is on the budgeting side, right? So if I want to allocate this much, this is how much we've actually spent, number of projects over budget, and your untracked. And this is across all your linear projects. So just think, hey, we have these main initiatives, this is how much we're going to spend for each of it, and then you can actually set alerts, right? So for example, for Agent Insights, we don't want to spend more than 20% of our budget on this initiative. You can set an alert for it, and it will let you know in Slack when that has been hit and who needs to go ahead and update. Cool. Any questions so far? Or again, we'll get into a demo soon. Yeah.
How are you measuring the ROI?
Yeah, so there's two main things, right? So the first thing is for we built this world model. I think we have a whole set of. Yeah, so what we do behind the hood, yeah, so there's a few of these, I would say. One is we essentially build a world model. So every session that goes through our CLI then gets mapped to a PR, gets mapped to a project, gets mapped to the outcome, right? If it was a bug, a feature, or something else, right? So what we're able to do there is essentially tell you, so the $1 million budget, 500K went to this. You can track every dollar and every session to what the outcome was, right? And then from there, that's half of the picture, right? And then we can also tell you, okay, you used these models. Using our router, you could have saved this amount on it too. So we're trying to get you the cost, quality, optimum for what you're trying to do, right? So instead of just saying, hey, we want to spend 10 million, go spend it. It's more of a, hey, these are the main initiatives we need to get done. This is how much we want to allocate towards each of those things. And then you can kind of reverse and engineer and say, okay, this is how much we actually ended up spending in the future. We actually have a prediction model that'll tell you, okay, you gave this engineer this amount of allocated spend. They're actually working on your most critical project. They should have this amount, right? So all of that kind of works under the hood. So we can just think about us as the most optimum AI spend allocator across your team so that you understand and get the highest ROI kind of automatically. Yeah.
Where do you get the information for the project and how do you map that to a PR? Is it Epics, Jira, or what do you use?
Yeah, so we do any project management system. So Jira works, Linear works, anything else works. If you don't use any of those things, then we do also just cluster everything into teams. So as you can see over here, so this pulls directly from Linear. So these are all the Linear projects, right? That this company has internally. This is how much has been spent. This is the budget. This is which engineers are working on it, how many sessions they've worked on it, what this activity is week over week. So yeah, you kind of get that entire picture. So you're taking these are business goals mapped to all the engineering work so that you understand what the spend and ROI is.
And if the scope of a project expands or gets smaller, is it the same? Like
Yeah, so we also, the other thing is because not everything obviously is super well tracked all the time between project management tools, we will also take all your sessions and PRs and automatically assign it to the project that it actually went to. So for example, if one session was 90% on project A, but you didn't actually ship anything for it, like there's no PR, we kind of handle that entire attribution.
What about email characteristics? And what are you using for that? Is that the customer supported for evaluations for quality?
Of what?
You said you're measuring quality of something.
Yeah, so two main things. We have our own code review. So within the code review, we're able to tell you what percentage of PRs had critical issues, security issues, logic issues, dead code, etc. So that happens kind of at the time of review. And then we also look at every session so that you can see within the session what's your tool failure count, what is the number of kind of wasted code churn, each of these things. So we attribute code quality both at code review as well as the session health.
Yeah, I'll have to ask you more about this later.
Okay, perfect. Cool. Any other questions so far? Yeah.
Large enterprises like Microsoft like famously went through their yearly AI budget in like 4 months. So what do you make of it? Just like restrict? Could they have like stretched it to 8 months then, like since you are able to %? And what do you make of like enterprises going back to hiring talent instead of like the back of
Yeah, so I mean, a big reason for that is two things, right? One is obviously token spend is so expensive. So if you kind of don't have any reins on it, you will very easily be spending, like, again, like their Uber, Microsoft's budget is probably in the hundreds of millions. They burn through that very quickly, right? So that's a big part of why budgeting is so important. You can't now be responsible for $20 million. You know, if you're a CFO or any company, right, and then you don't know what the return on it is, it's very quickly becoming a very big top of mind issue, right? So I think specifically to what you mentioned, right, there's two things. One way we would help is actually, taking that 100 million and extending it to how much you can do with it to like twice the amount. That's one part. But the second one is if you did actually budget it properly and you knew like, okay, these are the projects we wanted to go into, this is how much we want to spend on each project. This is like a rough cap estimate per engineer. You would actually get that visibility and triggers way sooner than, hey, we just burned the whole thing and we don't actually know where it went, right? So, awesome, cool. Okay, so we'll get through this quickly and then I'll give you a demo. So so this is again, it's like we show it to you all the way down to the individual task and engineer. Perfect. So so this is the last little bit is just a little bit more into how we're able to do this attribution. Every production signal is connected in one living graph. So we've built a world model essentially for engineering org. If you think about Claude Code and all of these other coding harnesses, they only understand your code base. They don't actually understand the sessions that went into it. They don't understand the bugs or issues that were created once the code is deployed. We tie all of these things together into one living code graph that's then able to go and tell you, hey, you spent this much money, this is kind of what went into fixing bugs, this is how much actually broke the system. This is a very concerning metric, right? If about half of your AI spend is going into fixing bugs, then it's just not a self-sustaining system, right? So let's say you spend $1 million on AI spend, half of that went to fixing issues, and that's just going to keep cycling until this number goes all the way down to like 5%. AI spend becomes really, really expensive to maintain. So this is a little bit more on the code quality side, right? As mentioned, we're kind of a state-of-the-art code review system. So every PR that you open, our AI agent will go in and analyze it and find issues or bugs. So we can then tell you, like what I was showing you earlier, right? If you use Haiku or if you use Fable, what percentage of those PRs have critical issues in it? And what we do is we actually learn from this. So every other, maybe you've tried like Claude Code to analyze the PR. The main reason why we're different is that we use all the historical learnings and errors, bugs, issues that we've seen in your PR to prevent those from happening in the future. So all of it goes into this world model so that it knows that, hey, if I made this auth error in the past, any future PR that has a similar issue will essentially have that prevented. So every signal you already run feeding into this one world model that's building operational memory across your engineering system. So your Claude Code Harness will not be making the exact same type of error over and over and over again, which essentially it is doing today. Cool. And then this is just a few testimonials from our customers. We've been working with Docket for over a year now. A big part of what we do for them is essentially citing, as I said, like learning things historically over their PRs so that the same types of errors aren't happening in the future. And this is a huge way that you make your agents more efficient and effective because they learn what to prevent. So you're not spending more tokens fixing the same bugs over and over again. Same thing with Be Free. Just from about 50 PRs, now they're over about 3,000 PRs a month. And then this standard metrics, we've been working with them to help understand what their AI spend is actually shipping. Cool. Okay, so I will spend the last few minutes here just giving a quick demo. And yeah, again, I think this is our main thought is the goal is never to write more code with AI. It's to make sure that you are maximizing the amount of value that you are getting. Okay, any other questions before a quick demo? Okay, perfect. So this is the system. So as mentioned, there's like a few main parts to it. The first one is on the code review side. So as you can see here, this is the overview dashboard of the entire system. And it'll tell you things like PR velocity, time to review. And this is another important thing is we'll actually go through every single issue that we found in your system and tell you like, hey, these are all the logic issues that we found in your PRs. These are all the security vulnerabilities that we see. And we measure this week over week. Can you guys do it? Yeah. And based on all this information, we're able to teach the agent to prevent these same types of issues from happening week over week. So this gives you all the stats on how your team is actually shipping, what's the velocity, what's the PR, what's the time to review. And if you want to understand why these metrics are what they are, you can kind of use our Ask Ellie agent. So if you click here and ask, hey, what stands out here, it'll go ahead and look through all of these stats and give you ideas as to what to improve and how. So for example, our time to first review is going up. I want to figure out why it's going up. It will go through our analysis and try to explain to us why that is and how to improve it. So that's on code review. You can also look at code quality, how much code churn you're seeing, where you're seeing the code churn, what's the error count that you're seeing in your system. So this is kind of a full audit of the code quality and churn that you're seeing. We give you full analytics into the system. So again, where you're seeing errors, what's causing it, and how we can improve it. And then within actual agent insights, what I'm showing you here, so this is the actual dashboard that will show you different things that your agents are doing, spend per person per day, and this is on the project side, right? So I can actually say, for this initiative, I want us to cap it at this amount. Send us a reminder, make sure that it's capped per person. This is also, as you can see, we get like session level data per engineer. And I think this is one of the most valuable things too, is as an engineer, how do I understand how my usage patterns are and what can I do to actually improve it, right? So we will tell you what skills you're currently using, what skills you can create, what skills other people on your team are using that you should use. So for example here, verify PR diff, this will make sure that your actual PR is something triggered whenever a user pastes a PR diff and asks to verify it against the cookies. So we go through all the sessions and then we also tell you, hey, 5 out of your teammates are using this skill, you should try it out, right? So essentially spreading coding agent usage best practices across the entire org so that you see the kind of value add that every engineer is getting. And what we're seeing is that this essentially enables best practices that any one engineer has learned to spread across the entire team. Yeah, and this is the router. It tells you again per session what the ROI is, how much you're saving versus using Opus or Cloud Code or any other model. And you can see it measures on PR review quality, session quality, as well as cost. So you have all the analytics you need to actually see if I do switch to a router or I do switch to an open source model, how much is it actually helping or improving for our org. Last one is this, which I personally think is super interesting. So for example, you could see that our team experimented with using Haiku for several sessions, and the retry rate and the tool failure rate was way, way higher than sessions using, for example, Opus, which seems to have been performing the best here. Yeah. So we essentially gather all these insights on your engineering system, so then you can make the best decision as to which models, which harnesses are giving you the best value and return for your money. Yeah, and it keeps going. Our main goal again is to really show you like what's the value add you get out of this. Cool. Any other questions that I can help answer? Yeah.
So can a user set up like thresholds for a project? If let's say I have a project of $10,000, and can I set up a threshold and then be alerted if I'm about to go over budget, or
Yeah, of
and
course.
also like have like recommendations on best ways to not go over budget?
Yeah. So that's the main thing. Is so for example here, right, we have that. So this project, you can essentially say, set a reminder, send us a weekly digest on spend, and set a reminder whenever we go over X amount. And then what it does here, as well as it will proactively suggest what the budget should be per person based on historical spend. So yeah, our whole goal is again to just make sure that you're getting the most optimal ROI for how much you're spending. Yeah.
So, does this platform provides any of DORA metrics, specifically the like before how much time it used to take to merge the PR or lead time, right? And now your tool is helping the team and how fast it became.
Yeah, exactly. So we do a few of them. So as you can see here on the code review page, it tells you your merge rate, time to first review comments, how much you're actually shipping daily. So this essentially, and then also PR size mix, what percentage of PRs are extra large. All of these metrics we kind of give you by default. We also have a whole team insights page, which will tell you like throughput across every one of your teams, what's the code review quality, review turnaround time. So all these metrics are there. I think specifically for kind of a comparison of side by side, that's what I was kind of showing you here. So we have this router, right? So it'll tell you how much was saved, and then PR review quality difference with and without the router, session quality difference with and without the router. Yeah. So those are the most direct metrics that you would essentially get. And then the best thing is if you do have any questions about any of this, you can also just ask our agent directly. So for example, if you want to understand, how is our team performing the sprint, right? It will tell you, these are everything that you got done, this is what's in progress, this is kind of across every engineer, how much was shipped, and PR quality score, if I want to understand, why is our agent score what it is, right? It'll tell you that. So any sort of insights that you want kind of compared across your team are kind of Ali's our agent that will help with that.
Aiswarya, the like other client data, can you get like a obfuscated data of how you're performing in comparison to like other companies, other engineering teams?
Yeah. So we do that in a few different ways. So as you can see here, we have these like lines, which are the 90th, 75th, and 50th percentile for amount that companies of your same size are shipping. So that's one thing you can do, is essentially just get a benchmark of PR velocity, throughput for your engineering org. Within Agent Insights, we also tell you some things like this, like what's a healthy amount of reads before edits, searches per change, files read per change. So like, are your agents operating the most like healthy way possible? So yeah, so for each of these, we do have some amount of benchmarking there.